Yes lads, Harry here, welcome back to another video on my channel. I've previously uploaded the defender and midfielder version of this video, but today we're going to be looking at the potential under-23 forwards that could break out in Europe next season. If you are completely new to Sorare and you haven't yet signed up and are looking to do so, there's a link in the description of this video that will get you one free limited card once you've purchased 5 from the new card auctions over on Sorare. If you're new to the channel, please do subscribe, and if you enjoy the video, please do leave it a like. And without further ado, let's get into the video. So as always, we're going to be using the watch list feature over on Sorare data to group together the forwards that we're going to be talking about in this video. And to kick things off, we're going to be talking about Nasi Univar that has recently signed for FC20 on loan from Ajax. This kid was on loan last season in the Turkish league and played for Trabzonspor. And to be honest, there's just not really much to look at if you're looking at the Sorare data graph, right? A 65 in there, a 60, a lot of appearances off the bench, but mainly a whole lot of DMPs and not much as Sorare players that we're too interested in, right? But with his dips and downward spirals, there sometimes is light at the end of the tunnel, and he's obviously gone back to Ajax. Ajax have said, you've probably not performed well enough to warrant a place in the first team squad here. Why don't you go on loan to FC20, who, as we know, last season were incredibly good for producing good SO5 scores. Now, I'm not saying Nasi Univar is going to walk into this 20 team and be the main man, but he does possess some characteristics that I do like in a player. He's very creative, he's very technical, he does like to score goals, create chances, set pieces. The interesting thing for me is, he is listed as a forward, but I would argue he's more of a midfielder just by watching him play. It says here, main position, left midfield. I'd say, yeah, he's like a left winger / number 10. Luckily for us, he is a forward card, which means with the defensive side of scoring on the matrix isn't heavily weighed, and I don't think Nasi Univar is the type of player realistically that's going to be getting a load of tackles, etc. So we're not really going to be missing out on his scores as a midfielder. So him being a forward card means you can give the ball away and it's not as detrimental to your score as it would be if you were a defender or a midfielder. I think that's a good thing that he's listed as a forward. Is he going to start every game? I have no clue. I know Cherney, their main player last year for FC20's moved to Wolfsburg. He was an absolute monster on Sorare last year. Like I said, just got a move. Is Nasi Univar his replacement or potential replacement? Maybe not in terms of like for like. They're bringing in a 20-year-old unexperienced player, albeit very highly rated in the youth systems and stuff. He's not coming in to replace Cherney, but I'm sure he's going to come in and provide a lot of depth. And I think FC20 is the right breeding ground for a player like Nasi Univar to come in and start scoring well on Sorare. Let's say he has a great year at FC20, Ajax then recall him, and then he could be an SO5 monster for Ajax, which of course is normally a good thing. But I do think we're going to see Nasi Univar break out next season in the Eredivisie. The next player we're going to talk about is Myron van Breda, another Eredivisie's forward, this time playing for AZ Alkmaar. He's only 19 years old, under 23 until 2028. £23 for a limited, £296 3-day average for the rare card. And this one has a bit more data to go off, right? He's a year younger than Nasi Univar. He's already kind of shown us what he can do in the Eredivisie. But I think next season, we're going to replace a load of these sort of substitute appearances with way more of an impact in this AZ team. We've got 100 here against Emmen in a 5-1 win, goal and an assist, playing a left attacking mid. Goal here against Walwick, 81. There's some decent peaks in here, to be fair, and some really decent AA game from a forward. Most recently, 16 AA here in a 2-1 loss versus PSV, 13, 21, 14, 29 AA, 15 AA, and then we get into a couple of the substitute appearances. But that was before he came into the side, and the reason he came into the side because Jasper Carlson got injured and, performed very, very well, to be fair. But I think next season could be huge for him. I think we're going to see him break out. He's really tricky. He's got really, really good ability. In the games I watched against West Ham in the Europa Conference League, he really, really impressed me. And I can only see him getting better next season. And I think the next player we're going to talk about in Johan Bakayoko, 20 years old, forward for PSV. Mainly plays as a right winger. He was kind of the Madueke replacement after he moved to Chelsea. Under 23 until 2027. I really, really think this kid's going to explode next season. There's some amazing scores from last season. A couple of assists off the bench. A couple of decent AA games. We've got 79 here, 78 here, 2 assists. He is very decisive, capable. Of course, if you're playing for PSV in the Eredivisie, you are just going to score goals. You're one of the better teams in that league. And the chances of him being involved in those decisives clearly seem to be very high. You could argue he broke into the side last year, but as an SO5 viable player, he wasn't a main man for them last season throughout the whole season, right? And I think next season is when we're going to see that come to life. It looks like they're going to sign Ricardo Pepi, which could be another forward I could speak about, but he's kind of broken through already, I personally think. But I think Bakayoko, Pepi, if Xavi Simons stays, who knows? PSV could have a really, really nice looking under 23 attack. And I think Bakayoko is just going to be an absolute SO5 monster next season. Next up is our first non-Eredivisie striker, and it is Matija Frijan from the Croatian league. He's currently playing for HNK Rijeka, and to be honest, this is another one that did perform exceptionally well last season in the Croatian league, but due to that, there has been some links away. I did see an MLS link actually to New York City FC, but it looks like they've opted for a cheaper option, so it doesn't look like Frijan's moving to the MLS. You know, who knows where he is going to end up, and this is part of the fun/risk involved in buying forwards. In fact, buying any card on Sorare. But this kid scored serious goals last year. As you can see on the chart here, it's just basically full of green scores, which is what we want to see from our strikers. Don't get me wrong, he doesn't strike me, and from looking at the data, he doesn't seem like the most AA capable of strikers, which is, you know, sometimes a problem, sometimes not. Of course, you're always going to want the forward with great AA game and decisive capable, but that's not always viable for everyone. Not everyone can afford a Vinny Jr. There has to be other options, and of course, there's always cheaper players that have good AA as forwards, but sometimes you just want strikers just to score goals for you. You might have had 4 out of 5 of your lineup already played, and they've all scored really well, and all you're waiting on is your forward, and all you really need is a 60. Well, you know, this is kind of the man you're going to be looking at in terms of what he did last year. Look, is this replicable in a different league? Who knows? It depends where he's going to move. If he does even end up moving, if someone's willing to pay the buyout clause, and I know New York were a little bit put off by that. There has also been rumors of him moving to Dynamo, which is obviously the best team in Croatia, and you know, I can only see that doing great things for his SO5 scores. You might even see an increased AA average because of that, in a better team, more ball dominant perhaps. So I think it is an exciting time to be a Frigan owner, or a potential Frigan owner right now. He's under 23 until 2027, so you've got a bucket load of utility out of him, and I'm just excited to see where he ends up next season. We're going over to Belgium with Antonio Nusa that plays for Club Brugge. He's an 18-year-old forward on Sorare, and of course in real life, under 23 until 2029. He's the youngest player we've mentioned so far, but from what I'm hearing in Belgium, this kid is very highly rated. He's been touted as the Belgium Mbappe for his incredible pace and dribbling skills, and I think next season could be the year that we see Antonio Nusa break into this Club Brugge side. As we can see from his Sorare graph, there's a handful of greens, a lot of substitute appearances, and not much in between, to be honest. And the fact that Noah Lang is moving on from Club Brugge might free up a space in that starting 11 for Antonio Nusa to show us all how good of a player he really is. It's always tough to gauge how good of an SO5 player an 18-year-old is going to be, but just by watching him play in real life using the eye test rather than using data, because you know this data isn't really going to give us much here. A lot of substitute appearances. It's just really hard to gauge how good of a player he is by looking at a 25 or a 30 or whatever. You know, you need to watch these players play, and from watching him play, he is very exciting. He's going to win a load of duels, a load of take-ons. There's going to be loads of attempted assists. Of course, goals and assists is what we want. He's a very forward-thinking, very creative, very quick player, and I think in the right system that could see him flourish and become a very viable under 23 forward option for next season. And for our next player, would you believe it, we're back in the Eredivisie, and this time we're scouting a player called Max Merding, who I think is going to be the successor to Pavlidis in this AZ Alkmaar side. A 19-year-old forward, currently plays for the AZ Alkmaar second team. He has made appearances for the first team. He's £14 for a limited, £185 1 month average for the rare. He's 19, like I said, under 23 until 2028. He's come off the bench a handful of times. Like I said, I did watch him come on against West Ham. I know it was only for 5 minutes. Can't really see too much of a player in that time, but he does look a handful of a player. He was a massive part of AZ Alkmaar's youth team last year, who did exceptionally well in UEFA Youth Champions League. And if we pop over to SofaScore to check his stats for AZ second team last year, he played 19 games. He started 14 of those, right? And he scored 8 goals. So if you look at goals per game started, he's more than 1 goal in every 2 games, which is a very good return. Albeit it's for AZ's development side in that sense, but they play in the second tier of Dutch football, which isn't a bad standard at all. And it does kind of look like that he's going to be that next one to kind of break out into this AZ side. Of course, if Pavlidis doesn't move on next season, then it's going to be tough for Mex to become like the number 1, you know, number 9, I guess, for AZ. If AZ decides to not spend much money on a number 9 and they think that Mex can take over in that number 9 spot next season, I think we could be looking at a very viable SO5 under 23 forward for next season. Next, we're going to Genk in Belgium to have a look at Eliu Federa. And look, this guy, as you can see from his stats last season, he wasn't playing for Genk. He did get a move from Zulte, who did get relegated. But this kid looks the real deal. And you could argue, you know, he's already broken out. And that's a very fair argument because he has. The fact that he's just moved to Genk has kind of proved that. You know, they saw a lot in him. L15 of 61, L40 of 55, L5 of 70, right? In a very bad team. Not only were there some really nice peaks in his scores, 85, 88, 90s, 81s, but his floor was pretty high as well. 15 AA, 14 AA in games that he didn't get a decisive, 17 AA, 16 AA, 15, 15, 17, 18. You know, when he didn't get a decisive, which was quite often because he wasn't in the best of teams, you know, his floor was always pretty good. Federa did get his move to Genk. He's under 23 until 2026. And for me, he's looking like a very, very cheap option of like potential elite card next year. Genk are in Europe next season, which is great for utility. You got midweeks and obviously weekends. That is, of course, assuming he plays those games. But, you know, the prices I'm looking at here and the scores that I'm seeing over here, it doesn't really add up too much for me. I think he probably should be priced a bit more. Look, I'm not biased here. This is just me looking at the data. Like, I don't own one of his cards. I'm not planning on buying one of his cards. And that's not because I have anything against him. It's just because I have my under 23 forward set. I don't want to buy anyone else. If I win one, great. But his scores, his age, and the team that he's playing for kind of tells me that this could be a really, really interesting option next year as an under 23 forward. Last but not least on our list is Julian Durnanville, who currently plays for Dortmund in the Bundesliga. As you can see, here he is in his kit. For some reason, it says no club, but if you go to SofaScore, you know, he is contracted to Borussia Dortmund. I don't know what's going on there. They bought him from Anderlecht, I believe. In January 23, they paid 8.5 million for him from Anderlecht. From what I've seen of this kid, he is a kid. He's 17 years old. He is frightening, lads. I know. If you've not seen him play, you know, again, I've said this in other episodes, but like, you know, go on YouTube and just type in this kid's highlights and you're going to see an absolute monster. This kid just reminds me of Doku so much in the way he plays. Both footed, can deliver a great ball, can score goals, can create chances. He's absolutely rapid and he can beat a man with skill as well. This kid looks like he could have it all as a winger. Of course, Doku himself came through at Anderlecht as well. So it looks like we do have a Doku regen in Durnanville. And I know he is really, really young. And there's going to be players like Adeyemi, Donny Myron, maybe ahead of him for parts of this season. But this kid looks the real deal, despite being 17 years old. We've seen it with players like Arda Güler. I do think Durnanville's going to be given a massive opportunity next year in this Dortmund side to flourish. He came on in that last game of the season against Mainz, where Dortmund really needed to win that game to win the Bundesliga title. He came on, got a 13 AA in 28 minutes, which is, you know, it is good, of course. Nothing insane to look at in terms of stats. A couple substitute appearances for Anderlecht before making the move to Dortmund. Honestly, lads, like, you need to go watch this kid play first, but there's a serious baller here on our hands. And I think next season, we're going to see him flourish and break out into this Dortmund side. There is definitely competition at Dortmund in those winger positions, but I think Durnanville is more than capable of taking over a starting position at Dortmund next year and flourishing as an SO5 forward. Right, lads, I hope you did enjoy that forward under 23 scouting video. If you haven't checked out the midfielder and defender versions of this video, the links for those will be down below. Let me know in the comment section as well if you would like a goalkeeper version of this. I've hesitated about making a goalkeeper version because I think it's just so hard to kind of predict who's going to start as an under 23 keeper. But let me know if you want to see a video of that and I'll try my best to get that out. Hope you have a great day. Hope you have a great game week and I shall see you guys in the next video.